The morning sun cast long shadows across the pristine corridors of the Galactic Military Academy as Sarah Chen strode toward her assigned classroom. Her standard-issue boots, designed for Earth's gravity, left subtle impressions in the soft metallic flooring, a material chosen for its comfort under the lighter gravitational conditions preferred by most spacefaring species. The door whispered open at her approach, revealing an amphitheater filled with students from across the known galaxy. 23 pairs of eyes, some multifaceted, others bioluminescent, and a few protected behind environmental shields, turned to observe their new instructor. "Good morning, class," Sarah said, lifting a reinforced cargo container onto her desk with practiced ease. Several students leaned forward, their attention caught by the casual display of strength. "I'm Instructor Chen, and this is Advanced Combat Integration 401. A Meridian student in the front row, their translucent skin revealing swirling patterns of excited neural activity, raised an appendage. "Instructor, is it true you carried that container from the storage facility without mechanical assistance?" Sarah glanced at the cargo box, suppressing a smile. It's only about 40 kilograms, standard equipment load for human peacekeepers." A ripple of murmurs spread through the classroom. To most species present, 40 kilograms represented a significant burden, requiring powered assistance or anti-gravity units to transport. "Now, before we begin, I'd like to understand your combat experience." Sarah pulled out a handheld scanner, another piece of equipment rated for Earth's gravity. "Please log into your neural interfaces, and we'll review your training histories." In the third row, a crystalline being caught her attention. Unlike their peers, they showed no sign of surprise at the equipment demonstration. Instead, they were taking detailed notes, their crystalline structure refracting the room's light in complex patterns. "You seem interested in human capabilities," Sarah observed, addressing the crystalline student. "Your name?" "Kirill." "Instructor." The student's voice resonated through their crystalline form. "I studied Earth's historical records. Your species evolved on a planet that would be classified as a death zone by galactic standards. I'm particularly curious about how that influenced your combat doctrine." Sarah nodded approvingly. "That's exactly what this course will explore. Many consider Earth's gravity and environmental conditions to be harsh, but they shaped humanity into what we are today." She activated the classroom's holographic display, bringing up images of Earth's varied terrains. While most spacefaring species evolved in controlled environments or stable ecosystems, humans adapted to everything from Arctic tundra to tropical rainforests. Our training methods reflect this diversity. A Zenith student, their anti-gravity harness humming softly, raised their primary sensory stock. "But instructor, surely with modern technology, such primitive training methods are obsolete." Sarah reached into the cargo container and retrieved a training rifle. Several students instinctively shifted back in their seats. "This is a standard human training weapon. No energy cells, no computational assistance, just mechanical engineering and physical ammunition." She expertly field-stripped the rifle, the metallic clicks echoing in the suddenly silent classroom. "By the end of this course, each of you will not only understand why we train with real equipment, but appreciate the advantages it offers." Kirill's crystalline structure vibrated with excitement. "You mean we'll actually handle physical weapons, not just holographic simulations?" "Exactly." Sarah reassembled the rifle with practiced efficiency. "The Galactic Military Academy has granted special permission for this course. You'll experience training methods that have prepared human soldiers for combat across thousands of years." The classroom erupted in a mix of nervous and excited chatter. Sarah allowed it for a moment before continuing. "Your species each have unique strengths. The Meridian's neural processing speed, the Zenith's gravitational manipulation, the Vaxian crystalline adaptability, all incredible advantages. But there's something to be learned from humanity's primitive approach." She gestured to the cargo container. "Inside this box are your first training tools. Before we open it, I want each of you to understand. This course will challenge not just your bodies, but your preconceptions about combat training. Are you ready? 23 voices, in various harmonics and frequencies, responded affirmatively. Sarah smiled, reaching for the container's latch. The first lesson of many was about to begin. The Academy's combat simulation chamber stretched 3 stories high, its walls lined with quantum projection arrays and gravitational manipulators. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, watching her students execute a standard hostage rescue scenario with textbook precision. "Their form is perfect," remarked senior instructor Velfor, his bioluminescent patches pulsing with pride. "The finest simulation technology in the galaxy ensures they learn without risk." Sarah nodded politely, but her attention focused on Kirill's team as they approached a holographic barrier. The crystalline student led their squad through the obstacle, their movements matching the Academy's tactical manual exactly. "Computer, introduce environmental variable. Equipment malfunction," Sarah commanded quietly. The simulation responded instantly. Kirill's team's holographic weapons flickered and died. The students froze, their practiced formation dissolving into confusion. Instructor Chen. Velthor's bioluminescence flared with alarm. This scenario wasn't approved for random variables. "In real combat, nothing goes according to plan," Sarah replied, activating her comm. "Team 2, adapt and complete your mission." The students huddled together, their previously confident movements replaced by uncertainty. Only Kirill seemed to be thinking, their crystalline structure refracting light in patterns that Sarah had learned indicated intense concentration. "We can still complete the objective," Kirill announced to their team. "The hostiles are programmed to react to our weapons. If we maintain proper form, they'll respond as if we're armed." Sarah smiled as the team reorganized, mimicking their weapon stances without functioning equipment. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it showed initiative. "Fascinating adaptation," she noted, making entries in her training log. "But they're still treating this like a simulation rather than a real situation." Velthor's sensory tendrils twisted in confusion. "It is a simulation, the most advanced in the sector," which is precisely the problem. Sarah brought up her proposal on a nearby display. "They're learning to fight in perfect conditions. No weapon jams, no environmental hazards, no real consequences for mistakes." The simulation concluded with Kirill's team completing their objective, though their time was well below their previous average. As the students gathered for debriefing, Sarah noticed their frustrated expressions. "Your performance was technically proficient," she began, pacing before the assembled class. "But how many of you considered using the environment itself as a weapon, or creating a diversion with available materials?" A Melidian student raised their appendage. "But instructor, the simulation doesn't allow for environmental manipulation outside of programmed parameters." "Exactly." Sarah activated her personal display, showing footage from Earth's military training grounds. "This is why humans still train with physical environments and real equipment. Sometimes the best solution isn't in any tactical manual." The students watched in fascination as human trainees used terrain features for cover, improvised tools from their surroundings, and dealt with actual equipment failures. "I submitted a proposal to the Academy Board," Sarah continued. "Starting next week, we'll supplement your simulation training with practical exercises. Real equipment, real environments, real challenges." The classroom erupted in a mixture of excitement and apprehension. A Zenith student's gravity harness hummed anxiously. "But the risks will be carefully managed," Sarah assured them. "We'll start with basic equipment handling and work our way up. Every species here has unique advantages that could shine in practical training." Kirill's crystalline form sparkled with enthusiasm. "Our structural composition could serve as natural armor in physical exercises." "Precisely," Sarah smiled. "And the Melidian's neural processing speed could revolutionize rapid response tactics. The Zenith's gravitational control could transform close-quarters combat." As the students began discussing possibilities, Velthor approached Sarah privately. "The board will never approve this. It goes against centuries of established training doctrine. Sarah handed him a data crystal containing her full proposal. Sometimes the old ways persist because they work. Humanity survived on a death world by learning to adapt, to use whatever tools and advantages we had. It's time these students learned to do the same. She looked at her class, already breaking into excited discussion groups about the possibilities of practical training. Change was coming to the Galactic Military Academy, whether they were ready for it or not. The auxiliary training ground had been transformed overnight. Gone were the standard low-gravity cushioning fields and environmental stabilizers. In their place, Sarah Chen had recreated a slice of Earth's conditions, complete with natural gravity and atmospheric pressure. "Welcome to Earth Standard Gravity, everyone," Sarah announced to her students, who were gathered at the facility's entrance in their environmental protection suits. "Today, you'll experience what human trainees consider normal conditions." The students shifted nervously, checking their suit readouts. A Meridian's neural pattern swirled anxiously behind their transparent cranium. "Instructor, these readings must be incorrect. The gravitational force is 1 standard Earth gravity," Sarah confirmed, standing comfortably in her regular uniform. "This is what shaped human evolution and our combat doctrine." Kirill stepped forward first, their crystalline form glinting under the training ground's harsh lights. The moment they crossed the threshold into Earth gravity, their movement slowed noticeably. Each step required visible effort, but they pressed forward. "Fascinating." Kirill's voice resonated with strain and excitement. "Our simulations never accurately replicated this sensation." Other students followed, their movements varying from awkward to nearly immobile. The Zenith students' anti-gravity harnesses whined with the unexpected load, while the Meridians' typically fluid movements became careful and measured. Sarah walked among them, her natural gait drawing amazed stares. "This is why human training methods seem primitive to many species. We evolved in these conditions, learned to fight and survive here." She approached a sealed container near the center of the training ground. Now for the second part of today's lesson. The container opened with a pneumatic hiss, revealing rows of training weapons. "These are modified Earth standard rifles," Sarah explained, lifting one effortlessly. "They fire solid projectiles with reduced powder loads for training purposes. The recoil and impact are real, though significantly dampened for safety." A ripple of astonishment passed through the class. A Zenith student's sensory stalk wavered. "Actual projectile weapons, not energy simulations." "Correct." Sarah loaded a magazine with practiced efficiency. "In real combat, energy weapons can be disrupted, power cells can fail, but mechanical systems like these are reliable under almost any conditions." She aimed at a distant target and fired 3 quick shots. The sharp cracks echoed through the facility, causing several students to flinch. 3 holes appeared in the target's center mass. "Who would like to try first?" Sarah asked, holding the rifle out. Kirill stepped forward again, their crystalline form adapting to better handle the increased gravity. "I volunteer, instructor." Sarah helped position the weapon properly against Kirill's shoulder equivalent. "Remember what we discussed in simulations about stance and breathing. The recoil will be different from anything you've experienced." The crystalline student took aim, their form trembling slightly under the combined strain of Earth gravity and the weapon's weight. They squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked, and Kirill staggered back a step. But their shot had found the target, striking near the edge. "Excellent first attempt," Sarah praised. "Your crystalline structure actually absorbed the recoil quite effectively. With practice, you could become an exceptional marksman." Encouraged by Kirill's success, other students began to volunteer. Each species discovered unique advantages and challenges. The Meridian's neural processing speed allowed them to adjust for recoil patterns quickly, while the Zenith students learned to use their gravitational control to stabilize their aim. "This is why we train with real equipment," Sarah explained as she helped a Meridian adjust their grip. "Each of you is learning how your species' natural abilities can adapt to physical combat conditions. No simulation can replicate this experience." By the end of the session, every student had fired at least one shot. Their performance varied widely, but Sarah noticed something more important. They were beginning to understand. Next week, she announced as they prepared to leave the training ground, "We'll begin squad exercises with mixed species teams. Today you learned your individual strengths. Soon you'll learn how to combine them." As the students filed out, discussing their experiences with animated gestures and excited voices, Sarah noticed Kirill lingering behind. "Instructor." The crystalline student's voice hummed with determination. "Could I schedule additional practice time? I believe I've discovered several ways my species' properties could be advantageous in Earth-style combat." Sarah smiled. The seeds of change were taking root faster than she'd expected. Rain drummed against environmental suits as Sarah Chen's students maneuvered through the muddy training course. The Academy Board had protested the use of actual weather conditions, but Sarah had insisted. Real combat rarely waited for perfect conditions. "Team 1, watch your left flank," Sarah called through the communication system. "Natural cover works both ways. The enemy can use it too." Kirill led their mixed species team through the course, their crystalline form refracting the dim light to help illuminate the path for their squad mates. A Meridian and 2 Zenith students followed, each adapting their natural abilities to the challenging conditions. Contact front. The Meridian's neural patterns flashed warning colors as training drones emerged from the rain-soaked vegetation. The team reacted instantly. The Zenith students used their gravitational control to create microfields of stability, compensating for the muddy ground. This allowed Kirill and the Meridian to maintain accurate fire despite the slippery conditions. "Much better," Sarah noted, watching through her tactical display. "You're learning to combine your species' advantages." Across the course, Team 2 faced their own challenges. Their Meridian squad leader had discovered that their enhanced neural processing speed allowed them to track multiple targets through the rain with unprecedented accuracy. They directed their teammates with efficiency it would have been impossible in clear conditions. "Time to increase difficulty," Sarah announced. "Night operations protocol engaging in 30 seconds. The artificial lighting dimmed gradually, simulating sunset. Most species represented in the class came from worlds with predictable day-night cycles or artificial lighting. Earth's rapid darkness transitions had been another shock to their training. "Kirill, your team has point," Sarah instructed. "Show them what you discovered in your extra practice sessions." The crystalline students' form began to glow softly, their structure adapting to amplify the minimal available light. They had spent hours experimenting with this technique, learning to provide illumination without creating a visible target. "Moving up," Kirill confirmed. Their team advanced through the darkness, using their leader's ambient glow to navigate while staying hidden from the training drone sensors. The Meridian on their team had synchronized their neural patterns with Kirill's light emissions, creating a sophisticated detection system that could spot movement in near total darkness. The Zenith students maintained their microgravity fields, allowing silent movement through terrain that would normally broadcast their position. "Incoming fire, 3 o'clock." The warning came just as training rounds peppered their position. The projectiles were low-powered but still stung on impact. Another of Sarah's innovations to teach genuine consequence awareness. Team 2 responded with a coordinated defense that would have been impossible weeks ago. Their Meridian leader rapidly processed multiple threat vectors, while their Zenith specialist created a gravitational deflection field. A crystalline student on their team, inspired by Kirill's experiments, used their form to split and redirect the dim light, creating confusing shadows that masked their position. Sarah smiled as she watched both teams adapt and overcome. The students had progressed from being barely able to function in Earth gravity to developing entirely new combat techniques based on their unique physiologies. "Exercise complete," she announced after both teams reached their objectives. "Power up the lights and gather for debriefing." The students assembled, their environmental suits muddy, but their postures proud. Even the Academy observers, who had come to monitor the dangerous training methods, seemed impressed. "Today you proved something crucial," Sarah began, looking at each student in turn. You showed that different species, different abilities, and different combat philosophies can work together under adverse conditions. This isn't just about learning to fight in Earth conditions. It's about adapting to any challenge. Kirill stepped forward, their crystalline forms still glowing faintly. Instructor, the traditional combat doctrines of our species never considered these possibilities. The combinations we're developing are just the beginning. Sarah finished. Each of you has talents that even your own species hadn't fully explored. By training in these conditions, you're not just learning human methods, you're discovering new potential in yourselves. The rain continued to fall as the students discussed their performance, each one excited about the possibilities they were uncovering. Sarah made notes for her report to the Academy Board, knowing that today's exercise had proved her point better than any argument could. The observation deck of the Galactic Military Academy's training facility had never been so crowded. Instructors, administrators, and even a few diplomatic observers pressed against the reinforced windows, watching the demonstration below with growing amazement. "Impossible," muttered a Zenith administrator, their gravity harness humming with agitation. "These scores cannot be accurate." Sarah Chen stood quietly at the back of the room, allowing her students' performance to speak for itself. On the course below, Kirill's team was demolishing the Academy's long-standing combat efficiency records. The crystalline student had positioned themselves at the heart of their formation, their structure pulsing with carefully modulated light signals. Their Melidian teammate interpreted these signals instantly, neural patterns swirling with rapid-fire tactical adjustments. "Target cluster ahead," the Melidian announced, their enhanced processing speed detecting the training drones before they'd fully emerge. "New pattern, implementing Protocol Earth 7. The team's response was seamless. Their Zenith specialists created a series of microgravity wells, not to shield themselves as their species traditionally would, but to manipulate the battlefield itself. Training rams curved around these distortions, striking targets that should have been safely behind cover. These tactics, a visiting combat instructor from the Melidian High Command observed, they're combining human directness with our species' natural abilities. The implications for military doctrine. A series of sharp cracks echoed through the chamber as Kirill's team engaged their final objectives. The crystalline student had learned to use their form's refractive properties, not just for illumination, but to split their targeting laser into multiple beams, allowing simultaneous target acquisition across a wide field. "Time," Sarah called out as the last target fell. New Academy record. All objectives completed, minimal simulated casualties, maximum efficiency rating. The observation deck erupted in excited discussion. Even the most skeptical observers couldn't deny the effectiveness of what they'd just witnessed. The students had not only mastered Earth-style combat training, but had evolved it into something entirely new. "Instructor Chen," Kirill's voice came through the communication system, their crystalline form glowing with accomplished pride. "Request permission to demonstrate the night operation protocols we developed." Sarah checked her datapad, noting the gathered officials' reactions. "Permission granted. Show them what you can do in the dark." The facility's lighting dimmed rapidly. Most of the observers leaned forward, their various sensory organs straining to track the action. Below, Kirill's team moved like shadows through the darkness. The Melidian's neural patterns became barely visible pulses, a coded language of light and color that only their teammates could interpret. The Zenith students had refined their gravitational control to detect movement through minute disturbances in their fields, creating a three-dimensional awareness of the battlefield. "Remarkable," the Melidian commander commented. "They're using abilities our species developed for scientific research as combat multipliers. The adaptation process is exactly what humanity had to do to survive on Earth." Sarah completed the thought. "We turned our environmental challenges into advantages. Now your students are doing the same with their natural abilities." The demonstration concluded with another record-breaking performance. As the lights returned to normal levels, Sarah noticed several of the observers making urgent communications to their respective commands. "The Academy Board will want to speak with you," the Zenith administrator announced, their tone significantly more respectful than before. These results, they could revolutionize our approach to military training. Sarah nodded, but her attention was on her students as they gathered for debriefing. Each of them stood taller now, confident in their abilities and proud of their achievements. They had transcended the limitations of both their traditional training and their preconceptions about their own capabilities. "This is just the beginning," she told the assembled observers. "Every species has untapped potential. Sometimes it takes looking at things from a different perspective, even a primitive one, to discover what we're truly capable of." As if to emphasize her point, Kiril's team began their cool-down exercises, moving through the enhanced gravity with an ease that would have seemed impossible just weeks ago. They weren't just students anymore. They were pioneers of a new way of thinking about combat training. The Academy's annual demonstration day had drawn a record crowd. Representatives from 17 spacefaring civilizations filled the observation decks, eager to witness the revolutionary training methods they'd heard so much about. Sarah Chen stood at her usual position, watching her students prepare for their showcase performance. "Final equipment check," Kirill announced to their team, their crystalline form gleaming under the facility's lights. "Remember, we're demonstrating the new multi-species integration protocols today." The sophisticated combat drones hung motionless in their deployment racks, their sensors dark as they awaited activation. These were the Academy's latest models, designed to provide the most realistic training scenarios possible without risking students' safety. "Something's not right," the Meridian students suddenly announced, their neural patterns flashing warning colors. "The drone diagnostics are showing anomalous power readings." Before Sarah could respond, the facility's main computer announced, "Error detected in combat drone safety protocols. System malfunction. Emergency shutdown initiated." The shutdown sequence began, but instead of powering down, the drone's sensors flashed to full activity. Their weapon systems hummed to life, energy cells charging to combat levels rather than training settings. "All students, clear the training floor," Sarah commanded, but she could already see the drones beginning to move, their programming corrupted by the malfunction. These weren't training units anymore. They were fully armed combat platforms operating without restrictions. The observation deck erupted in chaos as officials rushed to evacuate. But on the training floor, Sarah's students moved with practiced precision. "Teams 1 and 2, Defensive Formation Delta," Kirill called out, their crystalline structure already adapting to combat configuration. "This is exactly what we trained for. Real threats, real consequences." The Meridian students' neural patterns stabilized into rapid-fire tactical calculations. Drone targeting systems are fully active. They're not recognizing friend or foe protocols. "Use the environment," Sarah commanded through the communication system. "Remember your training. These drones may be advanced, but they're still bound by physical laws." The students responded with a coordination that would have been impossible weeks ago. The Zenith team members created gravitational distortion fields, not to shield themselves, but to disrupt the drone's flight paths and targeting systems. Kirill's crystalline form pulsed with intense light patterns, confusing the drone's optical sensors while simultaneously signaling tactical information to their teammates. They had discovered this technique during night training and had refined it into a sophisticated communication system. "Maintenance access panels," the Meridian called out, their enhanced neural processing identifying vulnerabilities in the drone's construction. "Physical weak points at junction points 7 and 12. Sarah watched as her students applied their Earth-style training to the crisis. They used actual cover instead of energy shields, coordinated their movements using physical signals rather than relying on potentially compromised electronic communications, and aimed for mechanical weak points with their training weapons. "Second wave deploying," warned a Zenith student, their gravity sensors detecting movement from the drone storage bay. "They're adapting to our tactics. That's why we trained with real ammunition," Sarah reminded them. "Machines can adapt, but they can't improvise like living beings. Show them what you've learned." The students split into their specialized teams. The Meridian's neural speed allowed them to predict drone movement patterns. The Zenith students created complex gravitational fields that turned the drone's own momentum against them. And Kirill's team used their crystalline properties to refract and redirect the drone's energy weapons back at their sources. From the observation deck, the evacuating officials paused to watch in amazement. These weren't the same students who had once relied solely on simulations and safety protocols. They were warriors now, combining their species' natural abilities with human-style practical combat training. "Containment fields are ready," announced the Academy's security chief through the emergency channel. "We can shut down all power to the training facility." "Hold that order," Sarah commanded, her voice firm. "My students have this under control. Sometimes the best way to handle a crisis is to let your trained personnel do their jobs." The demonstration day had turned into something far more significant than a simple showcase. It had become proof that their new training methods worked, not just in controlled conditions, but in real combat situations. The malfunctioning combat drones had turned the pristine training facility into a battlefield. Scorch marks decorated the walls where energy weapons had missed their targets, and the air crackled with the aftermath of gravitational distortions. But Sarah Chen's students weren't just surviving, they were winning. 3 more units approaching from Sector 7. The Meridian tactical officer announced, their neural patterns pulsing with rapid calculations. "They've adapted to our standard evasion patterns." Kirill's crystalline form shifted, refracting light in complex patterns that their team had learned to read as battlefield coordinates. "Then we adapt faster. Remember what Instructor Chen taught us about human warfare. Unpredictability is our greatest weapon." The Zenith students have positioned themselves at strategic points around the facility, their gravity manipulation abilities now refined far beyond their traditional defensive applications. They created precise gravitational lenses, bending the drone's energy beams back upon themselves. "Confirmed hit on Drone Alpha," one of the Zenith students reported, their gravity harness humming with controlled power. "Physical damage to primary systems. These machines aren't as durable as they think they are." Sarah watched from her command position, noting how her students applied their training without hesitation. The Meridians had synchronized their neural processes to create a living tactical network, processing battlefield data faster than any computer. Their natural abilities, once used solely for academic pursuits, now coordinated a multi-species combat operation with unprecedented efficiency. "Team 2, execute flanking maneuver beta," Kirill commanded. Their crystalline structure had developed microfracture patterns that enhanced their light manipulation abilities. "Use the techniques from the night training exercises." The response was immediate. The team moved through the chaos with practiced precision, their movements combining the best aspects of their species' natural abilities with human-style tactical doctrine. They had learned that real combat required more than perfect simulation scores. It demanded adaptation, innovation, and the willingness to act under genuine pressure. Drone manufacturing protocols detected. The Meridian tactical officer warned, their neural patterns flashing urgent colors. "They're attempting to fabricate reinforcements." "Not today," Kirill responded, their voice resonating with determination. They had spent countless extra hours in the Earth gravity training zone preparing for scenarios just like this. "Execute Protocol Thunder." It was a designation they had created during their training, named after the Earth storms that had so impressed them during weather adaptation exercises. The team split into precisely coordinated groups, each applying their specialized abilities in concert. The Zenith students created a complex web of gravitational fields, not to trap the drones, but to guide them. The Meridians used their neural speed to calculate exact trajectories, feeding data to their teammates through light signals reflected and amplified by their crystalline allies. Impact in 3, 2, 1. The Meridian counted down as the drones flew into the trap. The resulting collision was spectacular. The drones, their advanced programming unable to compensate for the combined effects of gravitational manipulation and crystalline light refraction, smashed into each other with devastating force. Manufacturing bay sealed, reported a Zenith student, their gravity sensors confirming the shutdown of the drone production systems. That's the last of them. As the dust settled, Sarah surveyed the scene with pride. Her students stood amid the disabled drones, their various species working together with a synchronization that would have seemed impossible just months ago. They had taken the foundation of human combat training, adaptability, practical experience, and the integration of diverse capabilities, and elevated it to new heights. Primary systems restored, announced the facility's computer. Emergency protocols disengage. The observation deck, which had been sealed during the crisis, began to reopen. The officials who had witnessed the event emerged with expressions of astonishment on their various physiological features. "Clear the training floor," Sarah ordered, though her voice carried obvious pride. "And well done, everyone. You just proved that real training produces real results." Kirill's team gathered their equipment with practiced efficiency, their movements still sharp and coordinated even after the intense combat. They had entered the academy as specialists in their own species' traditional combat methods. They would graduate as something entirely new, warriors who could adapt to any challenge, combining the best of all their abilities. The Galactic Military Academy's graduation ceremony looked very different this year. The traditional holographic displays had been supplemented with physical demonstration areas, and the once pristine parade ground now featured environmental training zones that would have seemed impossibly primitive just months ago. Sarah Chen stood at attention as her students assembled for their final presentation. Each of them wore their species' traditional ceremonial attire, modified to accommodate the physical demands of Earth-standard gravity. It was a small detail, but one that symbolized everything they had achieved. Today marks more than a graduation. The Academy Chancellor announced, their environmental suit gleaming in the morning light. It represents an evolution in military training doctrine across the galaxy. Kirill led the student formation, their crystalline structure polished to ceremonial perfection, but still bearing the micro-fracture patterns they had developed during training. These weren't imperfections. They were badges of honor, showing how they had adapted their natural form to new challenges. "Demonstration teams, take your positions," Sarah commanded. The students moved with practiced precision, each species flowing into formation with fluid grace that belied the heavy gravity conditions. The Meridian students' neural patterns pulsed with controlled excitement as they synchronized their tactical networks. The Zenith team members adjusted their gravity harnesses, not to compensate for Earth gravity anymore, but to fine-tune their combat manipulation fields. "Begin demonstration sequence," Kirill announced, their voice carrying across the parade ground. "Show them what the future of galactic military training looks like." What followed was unlike anything the assembled dignitaries had ever seen. The students moved through combat forms that combined their species' natural abilities with human-style practical tactics. Crystalline forms refracted light into dazzling tactical patterns, while gravitational fields shaped the battlefield itself. "These students have achieved something remarkable," Sarah addressed the audience. "They've proven that effective military training isn't about erasing differences between species. It's about combining those differences into something greater." The demonstration reached its climax as the teams executed their signature maneuver. The Zenith students created a complex gravitational matrix, while their Meridian teammates calculated precise trajectories through neural speed processing. Kirill's team used their crystalline properties to amplify and direct energy weapons with unprecedented accuracy. "Incredible," murmured a visiting military commander. "They're not just copying human methods, they're evolving them." The ceremony continued as each student received their graduation credentials, but there was more. The Academy Board had created a new certification: Advanced Multi-Species Combat Integration. Every member of Sarah's class had earned this unprecedented qualification. "Instructor Chen," Kirill stepped forward after receiving their credentials. "On behalf of the graduating class, we have an announcement to make." The crystalline students' form glowed with pride as they continued. "We've been approached by military commands across the galaxy. They want us to establish training programs that combine our species' traditional methods with what we've learned here. But we've decided to do something more. A murmur ran through the audience as Kirill explained. We're establishing an elite training unit right here at the Academy. Any species, any background, if they're willing to push their limits and learn new ways of thinking about combat, we'll teach them. Sarah felt her throat tighten with emotion as her students laid out their plans. They weren't just graduates anymore. They were pioneers, ready to share their knowledge with the next generation. The galaxy is changing. She addressed the assembly one final time. Threats evolve, technologies advance, but one thing remains constant: the need to adapt. These students have proven that we are stronger together, learning from each other's strengths and helping each other overcome our limitations. As the ceremony concluded, Sarah watched her students disperse to meet with various military delegations. The Meridian neural patterns showed confidence where once there had been uncertainty. The Zenith students stood tall under Earth gravity, their harnesses now tools of combat rather than mere survival aids. And Kirill, their crystalline form catching the sunlight, embodied everything the program had achieved: strength through adaptation, power through understanding, and victory through unity.